Summer's here, and Nordstrom has everything you need for your best dress season ever. From beach days and weddings to weekend getaways and your everyday wardrobe. Discover stylish options under $100 from tons of your favorite brands like Mango, Skims, Princess Polly, and Madewell. It's easy too with free shipping and free returns, in-store order pickup, and more. Shop today in stores, online at Nordstrom.com, or download the Nordstrom app.
We are
Cultivate.
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 We are Cultivate.
Hello and welcome to Ye Olde Crime, where we discuss the funny, strange, and obscure crimes of yesteryear. I'm your host, Lindsay Valenti, and with me is my sister and co-host, Maddie Stengel.
Hello.
Hello. This one is a whirlwind, so let's just jump into it, shall we?
Okay. Let's do it.
So today, we are going to be discussing Pamela Lee Worms.
Ooh, nice name.
Is it though?
Pam Worms? I mean,
I've heard
it's got to
worse.
be a rough. It's got to be a rough name, but
Yeah.
it's memorable.
Mm-hmm. There wasn't a whole lot as far as source material for this story, but
Okay,
what we did find was good. So,
nice.
information was pulled from the following sources: a 2022 The Cinemaholic post by Shraman Mitra, Deadly Women Wiki, Find a Grave, and a private thing that was written by Reverend Augustus Dimmick. And I'm not going to spoil it because it'll explain everything. So
like a private letter or diary, something.
yeah, something private.
Mm.
And thank you to Carrie Ann for her research assistance for this episode. And all of the links will be included in the show notes. So then you'll know what this private thing is called, because the whole title is in the show notes.
Don't look at it until we're done. Don't spoil it for yourself.
Don't look. Don't peek.
No looking. No peeking.
We wouldn't be here without support from listeners like you. If you're interested in supporting us financially, you can leave a one-time or monthly donation over on Buy Me a Coffee or our Venmo page. Links are in the show notes. And we make a point of reaching out to send you a thank you note and stickers to show our appreciation.
Want to show your support in a more concrete way? Pick up some Ye Olde Crime merch over at our TeePublic shop. We shout out whenever there is a sale each month, and we work to make sure we're creating new designs and changing it up whenever possible. And hey, thanks for listening.
Pamela Lee was born on December 19th, 1815, the daughter of Sir Frederick Lee and a Hanoverian.
Oh.
However, beyond this, not much is known about her mother. I don't know a name.
That's
nothing.
Not very good. So that means that she probably was not noble enough to be recorded.
No, probably not.
Rough. And in the 1800s, that's mean.
That is mean. Pamela's father was killed on the field of Waterloo while serving in the army, and Pamela was born 6 months after his death.
Yeesh.
Yeah. She was born in Hanover and lived there with her mother until she was about 6 years old. At that point, she moved to Wales with her mother shortly after her second marriage. So shortly after her mother married again, they moved to Wales.
Well, she found somebody that could help provide, so good. It's usually not, but like good.
Yeah. After they moved, Pamela was raised by some of her wealthy relatives, having refused to live with her mother and her new husband.
Well, at least she had the opportunity. I mean, if she was born 6 months after he died, it's pretty impressive that the family was like, heck yeah, we'll take her in. That's usually pretty unheard of in scenarios like that.
Mm-hmm. Under the care of a rich uncle, she attended an expensive academy but was later transferred to a district school where she began to get into fights with other children she viewed as quote-unquote inferior to her.
Not great. Okay, we don't really like Pam Worms.
No. She was soon expelled from the school, and her
Good.
life of means quickly turned to one of poverty. So,
I mean, honestly, karma.
yep. From what I was able to glean, her relatives had been people of means,
Mm-hmm.
and then following the war, they were on the wrong side. So, a lot of the money they had got taken away.
Good.
So, no more fortune. But she had spent enough time being raised with wealth that kind of colored her perception of life.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
It'll be a common trope, you'll find.
No.
When she turned 18, Reverend Mr. Wakefield of the established church proposed marriage, which she initially refused as he was significantly older than her.
Yeah, and like, you want to be hooked up with somebody who got kicked out for being a jerk and you're a reverend?
Maybe he was a family friend and he's like, hey, I'm Rowanry. I don't know.
Gross. All of this is terrible so far.
Yeah.
I hate all of this.
She did later relent, especially when she learned that he received an annual salary of £500, or approximately £51,300 in today's money. So
Decent.
not bad.
Yeah, decent salary, especially for somebody who had a religious vocation, you know? Generally, you don't imagine them having high-paying jobs unless they're like really high up in the church.
Yes. After 6 years of marriage, Reverend Wakefield received property in Ireland as an inheritance from an uncle, and the couple moved.
Interesting.
Yeah. He was like, hey, my uncle died, and I got this property. We're going to go there.
You want to go back? I'd be like, what?
Yeah, what? Throughout their marriage, Pamela maintained an extravagant lifestyle.
Of course.
Living far beyond their means.
Of course.
As a result, Reverend Wakefield had to return to the church to obtain a position at a new parish.
Yeah, gotta keep working. Can't just live off retirement.
No. Although he could have amassed up to £700, or approximately £63,000 today, because the bulk of the population was Roman Catholic and refused to pay much in
he
tithes.
Was in Northern Ireland?
Yeah, he was in Ireland. He was Northern Ireland, yeah.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, good luck with that, my guy.
Yeah. The couple ultimately returned to Wales.
Yeah. Yep, that makes sense. They're not as welcome in that area.
Additionally, at some point during the first 6 years of their marriage, the couple welcomed 2 children. And about a year after returning to Wales, they welcomed a third.
Oh, being pregnant and moving.
I know
rough.
Nothing about the children other than that.
Probably for the best.
Yes, I couldn't
Just
tell you
determining
anything more.
the story, I'm sure they wouldn't want to be associated if they were still alive.
Given the area in which they lived, which was bountiful in fish and game, the couple would regularly entertain guests.
Okay. Not great. Fancy dinner parties. Okay.
Yep. One guest, who became a typical visitor, was Mr. Moffat, a man, quote, of unlimited wealth and doubtful moral character, end quote.
Great.
Understandably, Reverend Wakefield became suspicious of their frequent guest.
Yeah, I bet. I would too.
On January 27th, 1843, one of the family's servants, a woman named Mary Hoyt, was instructed to prepare an early breakfast the next morning for Mr. Moffat, who would be visiting the house before going on a hunt.
Okay.
At this time, Reverend Wakefield had been away from the house for several days.
Not great. Not great showing up without the husband around.
Yeah.
Okay.
Early the following morning, as Mary headed downstairs to prepare breakfast per Pamela's request, the bell from the master bedroom rang, causing her to hurry to answer it. Inside, Reverend Wakefield asked where his wife was, causing Mary to answer that she wasn't sure, but that she would look for her.
He was supposed to be gone, and now he's suddenly in the bedroom, and she's gone.
Yes. So I'm assuming he came home early in the morning, went to the bedroom, and when she wasn't there in their marital bed,
what the heck is going on?
Yeah, he's like, where is she?
That's a bad morning for that poor servant lady.
Poor Mary.
Poor Mary. Oh my gosh. Could you imagine?
She's like, what's happening right now?
Even if she saw a bunch of stuff. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. During her search, the Reverend stood watch in the hall. After searching for some time, Mary opened a door to discover a partially dressed Pamela, followed out by an unrepentant Mr. Moffat, who appeared in his nightshirt and ordered his servant to prepare his horse.
That's a bad day for Mary.
Yeah.
That's a real bad day for Mary. She doesn't win.
No. Understandably, Reverend Wakefield turned Pamela out.
Yeah.
Telling her to leave immediately.
Yep.
She implored her husband many times to be able to see her children, but was either ignored or rebuffed.
Yeah, I bet he was just like, you can't. He would have to be harsh during that time, especially that time, that area, and who he was in the community.
Yep.
If he waffled, it would be seen. It would not go well for him.
Yep.
But that's also not great for Pam. But she also kind of made her bed, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
She went to her uncle to see if he would help plead her case to her husband, and he refused.
Yeah, I bet. He's like, you want me to tell the Reverend to take back a cheating wife? Cool. Yeah, I'll get right on that. Said no one ever.
Cool story, bro.
Said no one in the 1800s.
Yeah. She then ended up spending a 6-month stint in an insane asylum before reaching out to her mother, who refused to entertain her. She was like,
I bet.
I want nothing to do with you.
I wonder if her mom was actually like a decent person this whole time.
I have no idea.
Yeah. We'll never know.
But. Yeah. To escape the shame of not only being labeled as an adulteress, but also being turned out for her crimes, Pamela chose to emigrate to America.
Change your name, everything?
Yep. She arrived in New Orleans on May 15th, 1845, where she met a wealthy retired Jewish merchant and widower named Moses Worms.
Oh no, Moses.
Moses had spent many years living in Gibraltar, where he accumulated the bulk of his wealth before residing in Bermuda.
So he had a nice little life for himself. She's going to implode it.
I know. He had been in New Orleans visiting family at the time of their meeting. So he didn't even live in New Orleans.
That's awful.
He was just there with his family, or visiting
Poor
family.
Man. Poor man.
Moses was raising a son and daughter from his previous marriage on his own. And not long after the pair met, they were wed.
I'm sure she was like, I was a mom. All my kids are dead, or some other lie.
Yeah.
Or I've never had children.
And when I say not long after, I mean it. They were married on July 15th, 1846, by Reverend Healy of the Lutheran Church, just 2 months after she landed in America.
I was just going to say, May 15th is when she landed.
Yep.
And interesting, the denomination of that church, too.
Mm-hmm.
She's really, if there was such a thing as religious police, she would be in violation. Mm-hmm. There's so many different marriages happening in different religions right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, she wasn't technically divorced either. She was still
No,
married.
exactly. Yeah. So now she's making him an adulterer by proxy, right?
Yeah.
No. It's all bad.
It's all bad. When people inquired about her background and life back in Wales, Pamela shared very little.
Oh, I'm sure. She didn't want any traces to get back to it from it.
Claiming to be a widow, she
Of
lived
course.
in fear that fellow Welsh immigrants in New Orleans would recognize her and expose her sordid past to her new husband.
I bet. Because I bet, like, for one, they would be infamous just with his occupation. And then she's infamous with her scandal because everyone would know that. Because there was no, I mean, that's the gossip.
Yep, that's the hot goss. To prevent this, she convinced her husband to pack up and move the family to rural Illinois in the spring of 1846, where they were essentially cut off from Moses's family.
That's awful.
Pamela also made sure that Moses's family wouldn't be able to reach him and tell him of her past should they learn of it. She made a point of hiding letters that his family sent to him.
Awful. Awful.
Longing to visit his family.
I'm sure. And feeling like abandoned.
Yep. Moses was able to convince Pamela to let him go home to spend time with his loved ones. However, she had a plan to lure him back sooner rather than later, so she could once more cut him off from his relatives. After Moses left for New Orleans on November 20th, Pamela lured his 12-year-old son Tom into a trap.
No, she's not going to hurt the kid. Is she? She's going to hurt the kid.
Quote, and this is her saying this.
I don't like it.
Quote, I asked him to accompany me into the woods, where I would show him a wild duck that was lamed the day previous. Having got him on the brink of a pond surrounded by bold sides, and also by numerous trees and underbrush, I pointed to the spot which it was necessary to approach by holding by the brambles, to which I applied my foot to plunge him down, but was not successful. I then stooped down and disengaged his hands from the brushwood, when he dropped into the water, struggled a few minutes, and sank to rise no more in life. End quote.
Cool. So she drowned his son. Great.
Pamela reached out to Moses, letting him know that his son had gone missing.
I really don't like Pam anymore.
Yeah.
I take everything back. So much regret.
Understandably concerned about finding his child, Moses quickly returned to Illinois to aid in the search.
Yeah, like any good dad or parent would.
Yep. When Tom's body was finally found, no one suspected that his death was murder.
Of course not.
Drowning was such a common cause of death at the time that Pamela was able to escape without suspicion.
Oh my God.
It was just one of those unfortunate things that happened far too often, especially in the rural Midwest.
Awful. Gosh.
In the summer of 1847, so the following year, one of Moses's relatives, a woman known simply as Mrs. Brock, came to Illinois to visit him and his family after her husband died in New York. Mrs. Brock informed them that after her visit, she would travel to New Orleans before proceeding to Europe, where she hoped to stay with Pamela's family.
Don't do that. That's not safe.
As you can imagine, this news did not sit well with Pamela.
No, because she's a terrible person.
Quote, I immediately began to administer poison in small quantities, which at length had the desired effect. In the interim, I managed to take and keep her ready money and other effects. End quote.
Monster. Just a monster.
Not long after the quote-unquote untimely death of Mrs. Brock, Moses threatened to leave Illinois altogether and return to New Orleans.
I'm sure he thought it was like a bad omen. Because according to him, it's just been tragedy and awful things.
Pamela knew she had to take action to prevent that from happening. And she knew exactly what to do.
She killed him next.
Quote, convinced of his intention, I resolved to try the previously successful agent, namely poison, with little Susan, the only remaining obstacle, which I felt equally anxious to keep sick, so as to prevent removal before spring, and then we might take a different course. She expired after a long and painful illness of near 6 months on the 14th of April. End quote.
She tortured the poor girl for 6 months before she died.
Susan was 8 or 9 at the time that she was murdered.
This is really rough. This is really, really rough. Like my chest is flushing. Like I'm getting really mad.
Yeah. After this, the couple sold the bulk of their belongings at auction and traveled east, taking a steamer to Buffalo, where they stayed for a few days before traveling via railroad to Niagara Falls, where they remained for nearly 4 weeks. In mid-May, they continued their eastern tour by traveling via railroad to Lewiston, then by steamer to Oswego, and then by railroad to Albany, and then finally a steamer to New York. After staying there for a week, they traveled to Philadelphia. In September of 1848, Moses and Pamela traveled by steamer to Pittsburgh, and after staying for some time, purchased a cottage about a mile outside of the city for $6,000 cash, or around $244,000 today.
In cash.
In cash.
Wow. And after all that travel, too.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez.
In October of 1850, so 2 years have passed, the couple hired a housekeeper named Anne Thomas, who had been a family friend. After being unable to gain her confidence, Pamela concluded that she needed to get rid of her.
I'm sure. Can't manipulate her. Need to kill her.
Yep. Quote, at length, I seized the opportunity afforded by my husband's absence. When she went to bed sick, I mixed a little laudanum in a drink, ordered a fire in her room, after which I entered and placed a large quantity of charcoal on the fire and shut up the room tight. And when I entered the next morning, she was dead. End quote.
Carbon monoxide on top of the poisoning.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Vile. What a vile human.
Mm-hmm. Pamela enlisted the help of one of her servants to dispose of Anne's body by burying her in a trench that had been dug on the property.
Not even a proper burial.
No. When Moses returned from his trip, Pamela explained that Anne had stolen $100 from them, as well as jewelry and silks. After some back and forth, during which Moses was skeptical of Pamela's story.
I'm sure, after all the death that's been surrounding her this whole time.
Well, and because he had entrusted Anne with far more than that in the past, with no issue.
Right, and she was a family friend.
Yep.
Like they knew her.
He eventually agreed to let the matter drop, stating he had no desire to track her down to get the property and money back.
It's so awful. But I'm sure he was so just done.
Well, and I'm sure probably in his mind, he was like, well, if she took it, she probably needed it. And if that's the case, I'm just going to let it go.
Let her go live her life because according to him, they were family friends. And,
yep.
And from the sounds of it, he was a decent guy.
Yep. Tragedy seemed to have finally left the Worms family until Moses himself became ill.
Of course. Last piece of the puzzle.
He quickly came to realize that it was his wife who was trying to kill him, likely to gain access to his fortune.
I'm sure.
Moses passed away on October 15th, 1851.
He still died. So he figured it out, but he still died.
Yep. So he passed away a year after
Anne.
Believing that she had finally tied up all the loose ends surrounding her past and that any witnesses to her crimes had been dealt with, Pamela was horrified to learn that before his passing, Moses had finalized his will, and in doing so, he had disinherited her, leaving her destitute.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, Moses. Good on you.
Following this, Pamela's life started to unravel, as rumors began to spread surrounding the number of deaths that occurred within her family and their quick succession with one another.
Mm-hmm.
In addition, an autopsy was ordered.
My favorite. Even the old ones.
When the autopsy was to be performed, Pamela was nowhere to be found.
I'm sure.
And it was discovered that a person matching her description had taken the Cincinnati train at 10 a.m. Dispatches were sent via telegraph, and Pamela was apprehended at Wheeling before being escorted back to Pittsburgh by police.
Cute.
Pamela's serial killing spree had finally caught up with her, as Moses's autopsy revealed that he had been poisoned with many lethal substances.
I'm sure she threw it all at him.
Pamela soon found herself arrested in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, on charges of murdering her husband, Moses Worms. Her trial began on December 16, 1851, and she appeared in court dressed in a plain black silk dress with the black crepe cap. She looked healthy, calm, and serene.
I'm sure.
Judge Green presided in the court of Oyer and Terminer, where Mr. John Slater represented the prosecution and Mr. Thomas Graham for the defense. Dr. Varick, who was the coroner at Moses's autopsy on October 18th, provided the following testimony. Quote, "The body was much swollen and quite black. Think decomposition set in immediately after death. Found in the lower region of the stomach a large quantity of arsenic. Also the remains of a vegetable. That from what remained looked like a poison. Afterwards searched the residence of deceased and found a quantity of vegetable, which witness exhibited as apparently the same. I am acquainted with this vegetable, have often tested it in common with other vegetable matter. Think either would cause death." End quote.
It was like just a vegetable.
The vegetable in question was blue rocket, also known as monk's hood, which is a poisonous plant that gets its nickname from its blue flowers. Monk's hood, also known as wolf's bane, leopard's bane, and devil's helmet, features flowers with a hood-like shape. While it has been used in medicine, it was most commonly used to poison wolves and not considered safe for consumption, as every part of the plant, particularly the roots and the seeds, are highly toxic.
Yep. Cause heart attacks and strokes and seizures.
Other witnesses in the trial included Anne McGinley, a former housemaid, Julia Clark, who was employed as a cook, John McMahon, who looked after the horses, and several others who noted that Moses was unhappy with how his wife had conducted herself before his untimely passing.
That's so sad.
On December 18th, 1851, after a 3-hour deliberation, Pamela was found guilty. The following day, Judge Green handed down her sentence. Quote, "Pamela Worms, be forthwith removed to the place from whence you came, and there kept, and on the 30th day of January, 1852, between the hours of 11 a.m. and 2 p.m., you be hanged by the neck till your body is dead." End quote.
Hell yeah. Go away, Pam.
After her sentencing, Pamela gave a full confession to Reverend Augustus Dimmick, a Lutheran pastor who regularly visited her in prison and prayed with her.
That's the private message, the confession.
Yes. In her confession, Pamela turned the finger of blame onto her husband's.
Of course.
Stating that her first husband greedily asked her to seduce Mr. Moffat to secure money from him, and in turn used the indiscretion as a way to be rid of her.
Right.
And in the end, she never confessed to poisoning and killing Moses Worms.
Even though he had more poison than anybody else.
Yep.
Cool. Cool.
In The Private History and Confession of Pamela Lee, Reverend Dimmick included a note that he received from the sheriff on January 19th from the county prison. Quote, Reverend Sir, I hasten to inform you of the death of Pamela Lee. She expired at 20 minutes past 10 o'clock, having burst a blood vessel at 8. Dr. Clark was present and done all that was possible, but without effect. Reverend Mr. Varick was also present and tendered spiritual aid, but she would not accept of his services. She called frequently for you, but when informed by Dr. Clark that she could not possibly live more than 20 minutes longer, she then said, I resign myself to my expected doom. Give this to my spiritual counsel, as she handed the letter to the doctor, which letter I enclose. She then leaned back, and after a few struggles, she expired. Yours respectfully, Richard Storm. End quote. It is believed that the burst blood vessel was the result of her attempting to complete suicide while in prison.
It sounds like it.
Others discredit this recollection of events and believe that she did die by hanging on January 30th, 1852. Some also believe she died of natural causes as she was imprisoned waiting for execution.
All which are possible.
Mm-hmm. Regardless, Pamela Lee Worms was 37 at the time of her death.
Good. You jerk.
And that's the story of Pamela Lee Worms.
Awful. I take everything back. She was a terrible person.
She was.
I feel nothing for her.
She was a garbage human.
Yeah.
We'll just say that.
She's just bad. Bad people.
Mm-hmm. We love to hear from you, and there's a couple of ways you can reach out to us. You can email us at yeoldecrimepodcast@gmail.com, where you can send us story ideas, share any spooky stories you may have, fun gifts, or even just to say hello.
You can also reach out to us via snail mail. Remember mail? Our mailing address is Ye Olde Crime Podcast, P.O. Box 341, Wyoming, Minnesota 55092. Fun fact, we like to send out thank you cards with fun stickers you can't get at our shop, so it's worth the cost of a stamp.
I don't have another podcast plug this week, so
Okay.
We're going to move right on to listener questions.
All right.
This one comes from Carrie Ann,
All
and
right.
she wants to know, what's one thing you find most interesting about the story of insulin's discovery and its impact on people with diabetes? This one's for you.
I was like, this sounds familiar. Instantly how much better it was. Artificial insulin as opposed to like the bovine. Because like previously, diabetes was considered, it was initially called the walking curse.
Mm-hmm.
Because when your blood sugars are too high, you generally have to burn off that excess somehow. So exercise, people would just walk forever and ever, or work out in the fields or something to try to get that feeling out, because your limbs start to tingle, like they fall asleep. There's like you have excessive thirst, that kind of thing you can seize if it gets too high. So they used to call it the walking curse, because once it would happen, after anywhere from a couple of weeks to a couple of months, if you were lucky and your insulin ran out, you were done. You were dead.
Mm-hmm.
And they used to use insulin from cows and pigs, and they would boil it, I believe. And that was still another really painful process. You wouldn't last that long. Your quality of life wasn't that great. But one of the first successful children, it was a small child. I think he was 12, if I remember right. This could all be completely like this. Please don't take any of this as a solid thing, because it's been a long time since I've looked it up. But I remember one of my favorite images is an image of this little boy who's riding a bike. It's like a little tricycle kind of thing for like the first time, because the artificial insulin was allowing him to do so. So for me, I think the most impactful piece was just how much better the artificial insulin was, as opposed to the other kind of makeshift things that they had. And truly the greatest gift that I personally believe modern medicine shit on was the fact that the inventors of modern day insulin made the patent free because they believed that insulin was the access was a right to a good life. And unfortunately for us, nobody who makes modern day insulin agrees. So it's a fight we're still battling constantly. I mean, I myself have struggled to afford modern day insulin and modern day healthcare since I've been diagnosed. So it was one of the greatest things, but one of the greatest gifts we set on fire, in my opinion, was the free patent. Without getting too much on my soapbox, to all of the inventors of modern day insulin that believe that $200 a vial is acceptable, rotten hell, fuck off. You're kind of like the Winchester rifle company in my eyes. You're killing just as many people without caring. So have fun building your house of ghosts.
I did look it up just to verify. So in January of 1922, Leonard Thompson, a 14-year-old boy dying from diabetes in a Toronto hospital, became the first person to receive an injection of insulin.
Yes.
And within 24 hours, his dangerously high blood glucose levels dropped to near normal levels.
Yep.
So you were very close. He was just 14.
Yeah. So. But I remember that image of him being outside. And, you know, when I worked, I was a pharmacy technician at a children's hospital. And there is something so impactful and beautiful about a child that recovers from something so terrifying. And I mean, I can't imagine how big of an accomplishment that must have felt, like saving literally millions of lives, like in perpetuity, like forever, you know? But no, we decided to squander their gift and not improve it, not continue to improve it. Something I really hope will change, but I'm not holding my breath. Sorry, it's like it's one of those things where, you know, diabetes is one of those diseases where you expect people to thrive because the opportunity is there, but that does not necessarily mean that it's possible because of access. So, as somebody who has almost died from this disease more than once, I don't take it for granted, and I will continue to always try to fight and support in making it more affordable, because access to insulin is a human right, just like Banting described.
If you love the show, the best way to support us is to leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, Good Pods, CastBox, Podcast Addict, and or Audible. Links to all of these are in our show notes, or if you're already listening on one of these platforms, you know what to do.
Oh, and while you're at it, shoot us a question you'd like to hear us answer on the pod. We'll give you a special shout out and address your burning questions all at the same time. The weirder, the better. Submit them via link in our show notes or shoot them to us in our DMs.
On that note...
What's something good?
What's something good you'd like to share?
You know, I had a really, really lovely time with family this weekend. This was a really nice family weekend for me. We got to have my stepdaughter. We had a really lovely weekend with her and got to see you and your family and for your youngest daughter's birthday. And we spent some time at Nana and Papa's house too for Father's Day. So we just had a really nice, just relaxing family weekend where we played card games. We were outside, spent time with the dogs. Like, it was just really simple and lovely. Not a lot of expectation. It was just really nice to just kind of be surrounded by the people you love. So that's my good thing. What about you?
This is going to sound so dumb because yours was so good. But
well, I just got off a soapbox, so no, it's fine.
It's fine.
I had to wind it down, you know?
There you go. I had to bring it back down.
I had to bring it back down.
last week we had our very, very dead ash tree in our front yard cut down and taken away. And the reason that's a good thing is, one, it was done so fast, and like unless you saw the giant hole, which you can still see because it's a hole in the ground,
Right.
you wouldn't know a tree had been there. And two, it ended up costing less than they originally quoted because they got rid of it so fast.
Nice.
And three, now that it's gone, I can start like kind of digging the hill and start very lately planting my wildflower garden on the hill. So I was going to start doing that because it'd been raining so much, and I was like, oh, I can put the cardboard out and get it all nice and wet and then start the process of doing all that. And I just didn't do it, but I'm probably going to do that this weekend. Start the steps of getting everything set up.
Your pollinator wildflowers?
And I'm going to transfer a lot of hostas over, and I think it'll be good.
Well, and the fourth thing is now that dead tree is no longer a risk of falling on your house, because that was the biggest thing.
It was a very tall tree, and it was leaning. It was leaning precariously. Yeah. And I think it had been dying for a while because some of its roots had been cut. I think I've told the story already, like several years ago when we had to have our front yard, like all the landscaping essentially cut out because there was a leak on the city side of like the water main.
Yep.
And so
it got damaged on the city side, so it already was having a hard time.
Thankfully, we didn't have to pay for that, but also we lost all of our landscaping in the front and ended up with a dead tree as a result. But it wasn't all the city's fault. It was ash borer and stuff. So it was a little bit of everything. But now I have the opportunity to kind of
grow something new
and start my wildflower and hosta garden. So
have something that'll actually be there for the pollinators and butterflies to hang out with instead of a dead tree that they would avoid.
Exactly.
There you go.
All right, shall we?
Let's do it.
Want to be social with us? You can see pics from this week's episode, bonus content, and funny memes on X at Ye Olde Crime Pod, or on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and YouTube at Ye Olde Crime Podcast.
Speaking of YouTube, we have a special playlist just for our Can You Crack the Cramp Word segments with our guest podcasters to see who can correctly guess the meaning of some obscure Victorian slang terms. If that's your thing, check it out.
And on that note, as always, I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Madison.
And we'll see you next time with another tale
as old as crime.